Alright, so if the lighting looks a little wonky in this video, and the next one too, actually, that's because I'm actually having to re-record these two reviews at night, which means I can't rely on the natural lighting outside of this room. It's a long story that involves the video files for the two reviews becoming corrupted, me having already gotten rid of the raw files at the time, and this being the earliest that I had to re-record them. It would be a comedy of errors if it were at all funny. This review was supposed to go up. It'll be yesterday by the time this goes live, and the next review, which will go live later today, was supposed to go live later today. It's a sucky situation, but it's a pretty simple one overall, though I wish it was a little more complicated because it would give me an excuse not to talk about this episode. Pizza Thing, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Season 2, Episode 12B. Now that's not to say that I hated this episode or anything, it's just I don't really have much to talk about with it. It's a Ponyhead episode, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't dislike Ponyhead anymore. She's not very high on my list of characters, but I don't dislike her anymore. My issue with this episode is something that we'll talk about in a minute. The plot of the episode basically goes that Star and Marco invite Ponyhead over for their usual night of Netflix and chill. That is what Netflix and chill means, right? You invite a friend over to sit and watch Netflix and do absolutely nothing else. But when Marco goes to pick up the pizza that they're to be eating later that night, Ponyhead, who finds the entire concept of sitting around Star's house all evening super boring, follows him around in the hopes that she'll find some excuse to do something more fun in her eyes at least. Which leads to a bunch of hijinks, and the hijinks don't really matter. The hijinks are more fluff for us to enjoy until the resolution of the episode. And they were enjoyable. The animation was just as on point in this episode as it has been in every other episode of the show. The hijinks were not objectionable. The situations that the characters got into in this episode, they were basically filler. They mean absolutely nothing to the plot of this show, or really this episode. They could have been changed out for anything else. They were padding to get us to the resolution of this 11-minute episode. Which, I'm sorry, this show at this point has shown that it has the chops to tell real stories with real weight. I don't expect it to give me this kind of episode anymore at this point. So when I see an episode like this, which is basically just 8 minutes of filler and 3 minutes of meaningful dialogue, I'm disappointed. But I guess it was all worth it, because at the end of the episode, Marco and Ponyhead learn that they can actually get along with each other. But that's the same lesson that they learn every time they're in an episode together. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit here. Yes, that is basically the same lesson that these two characters learn every time they're in an episode together, but this was a little different. Usually in the episodes where Marco and Ponyhead have to interact, Star is a prominent force in those episodes. Instead, in this episode, Star was barely present, much like in the episode where Marco and Tom kind of reconciled things earlier this season, but this, I think, by far was the inferior of the two episodes. While Star wasn't here to be the catalyst of the two of them realizing that they could come together and actually enjoy each other's company, while they did come to that realization on their own, the resolution of this episode literally comes out of nowhere. They're at a pizza parlor, the pizza parlor that they were heading to pick up the pizza, and Marco, in this absolutely ridiculous scenario, accidentally offends the pizza chef and he quits his job. And then in a case of actual legit Deus Ex Machina, a plot point which came out of nowhere to resolve the situation. And keep in mind, I don't use that term often because a lot of people overuse and misuse it, but this was an actual case of it. A kid walks up, says some nonsense stuff that wasn't even really true when you think about it in hindsight.
Do you know why I like pizza? It's divided into equal portions, and it's got no sharp edges to stab someone with. And I like the crust.
And suddenly, Marco and Ponyhead they're friends. They don't just come to the realization that they can tolerate each other's presence for Star's sake, they're actually buddies now. It came out of absolutely nowhere, and while I do hope that this is actually resolved now and we won't have to get this plot a fourth time, the fact that the characters didn't really earn it makes it hard for me to get behind this episode and really enjoy its resolution. Not an awful episode, but this is probably the most fillery feeling episode that I've watched in a while, which is saying something, and honestly it's probably not one that I'll ever revisit. That said though, guys, if you have seen this episode of Star vs. the Force of Evil, what do you think of it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22 and I will talk to you guys later.